From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. Now, if you want to take a listen to our archives, they are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. The husband and wife team of John and Emily Goodwin come by tonight to discuss the creativity of the science fiction realm. John has been involved with publishing books since 1986. He is a board member of the Audio Publishers Assn, a national organization of the audio publishing industry. Emily has been involved with book publishing since 2007. She is active with the IBPA, otherwise known as the Independent Book Publishers Association, as a contest judge for the Benjamin Franklin Awards, as well as being an active member of Audio Publishers Association as well. Tonight, we're going to get into sci-fi, what it's like to write. How do you become a writer? How do you pick a good topic? And mainly, what is your focus? Then at the bottom of hour number 3, I will bring you the SOR Newswire, brought to you by Paranoia Magazine. Mr. John Goodwin, second time you have been on this show. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so happy to be able to speak with you again. It's been a long, long time.
It has. And I'm going to let you introduce your lovely partner, bride, your cohort, the best looks of the operation here in Emily.
That's a fact. Yeah, so Emily has been involved with Galaxy Press for much longer than she's been working in public affairs. She's done most of the various functions of marketing and sales and website, web creation, and then came into PR several years ago, and it's been great because we're able to work together. We go to, when we were traveling, we go to various conventions. She, being from Canada, always loves going up there for any excuse at all to do a convention up in Canada, and she will talk about that since we're now talking up in Canada with this interview. So we work. It's great being able to do it. I've had a lot of opportunities that I didn't have before when we're able to work together, and it's been so nice. We meet a lot of people, a lot of great people, and I've used to do all these radio shows. You know, I met you via Jim Mars, so I did pretty much all the radio shows he would used to do, and I love meeting so many people. And these long formats are my favorite to do because then we can just have a chance to chat and talk. And so Emily started doing them with me, I don't know, about the last half year or so. So we just have a lot of fun, and just she remembers things that I don't, and vice versa. And so it just makes for a much more enjoyable interview. And if someone gets tired of me, say, well, look at my beautiful wife, and that handles everything. So we're good.
Emily, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me on. Yeah, I was looking forward to this. Should be fun. I'm excited.
Yeah. A lot of good words there. We appreciate that. And we're going to learn more about you guys tonight. Emily, I'm going to start with you because you're kind of the rookie to this in talking on the radio. And you know, the one thing I will say, I put up a lovely picture of both you and John in a beautiful, John's in a beautiful tuxedo. You're in a gorgeous gown. And all I'm saying is, damn, are you out of his league? I am saying that right on the record. I mean that with all due respect, John. All due respect. You know, but
I still pinch myself. I
don't blame you. You know what? Let's just clap for Emily right there. Let's just have a little clap for her. Get her all embarrassed right off the bat here. You know, but there we go. Now she's blushing.
I'll just kick back and listen to you guys do the show.
Emily, what made you fall in love with books?
Oh, books. Well, I was born. And I fell in love with books. No, I mean, in books in general, I mean, I obviously in school goes back all the way then, and one of the things that made me fall in love with books and coming to work here was back in the 90s when I came to Gal Express and Author Services, and I got a tour, and I toured through the Writers of the Future lounge, and in that there's this beautiful lounge we have here in the building, and that's set just for the Writers of the Future, which is the international writing contest that we do. And when I got a tour of that place, I just thought, my goodness, that's something that I would really like to be a part of, because it's launching careers for people all over the world, not just professional authors, but for people who otherwise don't have a voice. It's like the underdog. It's the American Idol for writers, and long before that existed, it's been going for, we're in year 37 now. So that was something that was amazing to see, and I was like, okay, I want to be part of that. And we'll talk more about what this contest is, but we've launched careers for over 800 new authors, and we've had over 32 New York Times bestsellers. So it's a very successful contest that we run, in addition to our routine publishing that we do, and we publish this anthology every year that has these new artists, these new writers and illustrators as well, and so that keeps me busy, and I had a lot of science fiction, fantasy reading from that.
What's your favorite book all over the place?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. Favorite book ever? Wow. Let's see. I'm going to give you two. No, I'm going to give you three.
Do it.
One is, I really like Orson Scott Card's Ender's Game, and L. Ron Hubbard's Battlefield Earth, and another one called Final Blackout. So there.
That's a good
one. Hard
one.
To pick one.
That is you know what? That is a very, very good one, and I don't blame you for that. How about you, John? Why did you fall in love with books?
I remember as a little kid, my parents would go to Texaco to gas up, and you'd accumulate points, and they'd have these different racks where when you get some of these points, you could then buy these different books for like $1.99, whatever it was. I remember Jack London, Call of the Wild, and Mark Twain with Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer, and I loved going off into those worlds, those adventures, and just feeling that sense of other worlds, that part of this world, there was other things that were happening here just, a few years away from me or a few miles away from me. And then I expanded from there. I really, I didn't lock into any particular genre. I liked Westerns. I read probably everything that Louis L'Amour ever wrote. I read the E. Doc Smith's The Lensman series that totally and forever hooked me on science fiction. I read that series probably 3 times. The Skylark series he also wrote, which was, I really loved that as well, just that whole, other galaxies, other universes, other worlds. And then there was also, like, going back to Louis L'Amour, Haunted Mesa, which talked about for me, that was my really first experience with paranormal type thing, and it made sense to me. Like, that's cool. And so I've bounced around. I love Westerns in general, not just Louis L'Amour. L. Ron Hubbard wrote a ton of, he wrote like 33, 35 Westerns, and just amazing stories because he grew up in the Old West. So I like those things. I like mystery detective. I'm not really that much into romance books, or I'm definitely not into the 50 Shades of anything. That's not my cup of tea in the least. But I like the things, and so one thing that I really get a big bonus now because of Writers of the Future, like Emily mentioned, one of her favorite stories is Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. Well, he's one of our judges and is a good personal friend. So, in fact, he even did the introduction to Final Blackout, one of the other books that she just mentioned. But I'm able to, like Frank Herbert, who when he was alive was a judge for Rise of the Future contest. He wrote Dune, but now the movie's coming out and there's been all the prequels and stuff to Dune. Brian Herbert, his son, and Kevin J. Anderson, who is his writing partner, are both judges for the contest. But I get a lot of books from them, and they write lots of different stuff. So I end up with so many different books to read that I'm hard-pressed just keeping up with judges, let alone our winners. And we've had some amazing winners that have gone on to great careers. That it's been it's a real joy, and I love the writing personality. They're into creativity, and they're really trying to put something out there. It's something that you have to really create in order to make it work. And so I enjoy that a lot. And then because of what we have with our competition, we have the illustrator contest too that goes along with it. We have some of the most amazing artists, and now they work in Hollywood. They work in they do whole scapes for Las Vegas. For the big hotels that they do there. There's whole big designs. They do all types of art, illustration, comics. We have all kinds of stuff, and so I work with them too. It's been such an amazing program, and they all like the idea that they're able to pay it forward to the next undiscovered, writer or illustrator that can be introduced into this. And so we've got winners that come up every year from all over the world. So anyway, that's my answer, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, I don't blame you. I'm going to tell you, I grew up in a family where I don't ever recall seeing my parents open a book. As sad as that sounds, my dad was always very sporty, so was always at the hockey rink or the baseball diamond. I think I saw my mom reading a couple of books maybe twice, 3 times. Reading was something that was not promoted in my house. And it's not that I wasn't, my parents would always be like, go study, go read your books or whatever. But, there was no habitual just losing yourself in a book. And finally, when I was about 19 or 20, I got a couple of autobiographies. But the book that changed me was a book called Without Remorse by Tom Clancy, which is the first book of the Jack Ryan series. And I never knew what it was like to fall in love with reading up until that point. And I never knew what it was like to have that motion picture of your imagination showing what this movie being played out through the words that, a great novelist can do with research, with painting a picture, as I like to call it, and I can tell you this, it's very difficult to get lost in a book. But when you do, it really, Emily, becomes an addiction. It really does. And it's a healthy addiction.
Yeah, we hear a lot also, people reading a lot while these safer-at-home restrictions have been in place. We have a lot of people reading books and also writing. For all of our writer friends, they're like, oh, lockdown? Nothing's changed for me, So, but it's a good opportunity for people to escape. We talk about people, why do you like to read? And people like to read because they want to escape into a story. They want to go somewhere else. They want to be taken on an adventure.
The thing that I find too, and you mentioned Tom Clancy, my favorite one of his was Hunt for Red October. I really enjoyed that one that he wrote. But it's an interesting, and this is something I'll say that people definitely have opinions on this, but when I talk to people like yourself or people that are into either the paranormal or who are readers, they have a sense of imagination that people that all they do is watch TV or movies don't have, because that functionality has been like ripped off by Hollywood. And you talked about like the movie in your mind. That's the best part of reading. The girl looks like how I want her to look like, and the guy is going to be whatever, how I picture that person. And it adds so much more of a sense of personalness to a story. Whether it's science fiction and out in space, it's still my picture of what that person as described by the author looks like. And so I can own that. I can be part of that story and to that degree experience it if it's a well-written book. So that's something that I think that, if a person gets into reading a book and really understands that addiction that you just mentioned, it's unlike what you get at when you go to a movie now. I remember like when the first Star Wars came out, but even earlier than that, the older shows in the 60s where the special effects were just so cheesy compared to now, but they were so much more real to me because I had my own imagination, had to fill in whatever gaps, and now there's no room for imagination. It's all right there in front of you, and that's something that a book will provide that you don't get anymore.
Very true. Very true. But, there's been a lot of criticism. Much like radio, the writing and book industry has taken a lot of lumps over the last number of years where there's a lot of people saying that, self-publishing has hurt a lot of writers and great writers from making a profit. Now, I'm not talking Stephen King or Tom Clancy type money or even Dan Brown, but I'm saying, from making a decent living, that there's too many books out there. There's not enough books. The internet has killed this. Audiobooks has killed it. These audiobooks that you can put on tablets has ruined things for book sales and cut down the costs. There's been a lot of road bumps for your career choice. And I think I don't think it's healthy, to be blunt. Maybe I'm too personalized in it because to me, there is nothing better than I will never listen to an audiobook. I just do not enjoy it. I want to be able to put that picture in my own mind. And, how do you rescue something that is floundering because of technology? Well,
let me answer that, Emily, because that's something that I've had several discussions about, and it's a very real question. The fact is, though, if you take a look at it, the good stuff still sells well. The word of mouth on something that's good carries it. The word of mouth on something that's bad also carries it. So a problem that we had originally, we're going to talk a little bit about the audiobooks because we have like the audiobooks that we produce are like the old time radio theater. We don't have one voice doing male, female, child, dog, anything. It's whatever that character called for in the story is what we have, and we make sure that it's accurate to what that description from the author is. When we do our sound effects, because this is something that really bore out. I didn't know this before doing these audiobooks, but an exact sound will trigger a certain image. So when you have sometimes audiobooks, they just have, here's a car, here's a plane, here's a gunshot, and they don't do anything for me. But a Winchester versus a 22, a Winchester like a 30-06, or a pistol, like a different type of a gun will have a different sound. A plane is different than a jet. A horse isn't the same as all horses. And so what we did is we went through and we created, if we couldn't get them, the sound effects for the different sounds called for in the story. We had some of the detective stories that took place in New York. So we actually went to New York and recorded taxis on Fifth Avenue. We went down into the subways and recorded the New York subways, because anybody that's from New York knows that's what they sound like. And so by having these different sounds, it actually helps what you can recognize it. It triggers your imagination a bit better. But that was a problem we had when we first started our audiobooks, because everybody was doing an audiobook. And then if a person hadn't tried an audiobook and the first thing they try is a piece of crap, then I hate audiobooks becomes the conclusion. And so you only have one chance to make a good first impression. So for the whole industry, if someone tried the first audiobook and it's one of these home jobbies that was like no QC, no quality control on it, very bad recording, and and they went out to sell it, and it's a bad story to begin with, improperly punctuated, and so when they read it, it doesn't interest you at all. Then I don't like audiobooks. That's why when we came out with our audiobook for Battlefield Earth, we won an Audie Award, but it's an Audie for marketing, because this audiobook not only raised the bar for audiobooks, but it increased the listenership of audiobooks, because those people that listen to like, hey, I like audiobooks, so it grew the industry, and that's why it got the award for marketing, not just for a genre. So,
that audiobook had like 80 actors on it and over 150,000 sound effects, so that was the whole production.
Yeah.
It was like a movie.
Yeah. So the whole thing now with publishing, it has definitely taken a couple forks, and there's still the fact that a good story will get read and will get shared, and a bad one definitely doesn't. If someone's trying to make a living bypassing the normal publishing rigors, then it's not going to help them, and it's going to make it difficult for others. But now what you've got with Amazon is they've got their grading systems they have, which kind of like they've gone through right now, and it's kind of like weeded out this. There was a thing for up through last year, I guess it was, or maybe the year before, where you could get a bunch of people to give you reviews, 5-star reviews, and it made it look like you were a great book, and somebody gets it, this is really a bad book. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. They've knocked that out because they realized people were gaming their system to be able to try to sell more books that were not good. The thing about Writers of the Future is that right now we have so many contest entries. We have our 12 annual winners, but now we also have our finalists, semifinalists, honorable mentions, and those now, because of the reputation of the competition, because it's blind judging and it's only by the quality of the story that you get any recognition at all from the contest, that their stories, when it goes to editors, almost always is taken out of the slush pile and considered for publication in their magazine, or editors will take it. And so a lot of our winners now move on to being published by Tor or Bain or other publishers, or they go on and work like with Kevin Anderson with his imprint, and will get their books published because they prove themselves as writers that can write a good story. The other thing now, too, is that with this type of credential, it makes you stand out from others that don't have that. You've got a few exceptions here, like with The Martian. He had his one book, and he's working on another right now, and it got made into a movie, and it's like, wow, this is... And so everybody goes, oh yeah, look at The Martian. We got him. He's like, great.
John, I'm going to get you to hold on. I'm going to get you to hold on right there, because we are going to hop out right now. John and Emily Goodwin, what makes a good book? Coming up next on Spaced Out Radio.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother Is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in this supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know little brother is watching.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
You wanted new SOR gear, and now you can have it. The SOR Vault is fully stocked with t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and everything in between, with great logos for you to choose from. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com, click on the SOR Vault, and go shopping. Pricing is quite affordable, and you can look good representing your favorite show. So go to our website and pick up your new SOR wear at the SOR Vault today.
If you like it hot, real hot, then heat up your meals with Bumblefoot hot sauce.
Get your Bumblefoot hot sauce today. The sauce, Bumblicious, and the 4 million Scoville unit Bumble. We're going in hot, real hot, coming out even hotter.
Keep the milk nearby and tantalize your taste buds tonight.
Bumblefoot hot sauce, available now at kajans.com.
Cold drinks, great food, and the best music in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is the place to be, open until 2 a.m. nightly. Everything on the menu starts at just $6.95. Who serves food that cheap anymore? At the Moose, you'll never know who you'll run into. Rock stars, actors, athletes. It's the place everyone wants to be. So join us at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hello, Space Travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month, and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
Are you looking for great advertising value for your company? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. We have a multitude of places to get your name out there, including commercial ads during the show, special promotions, and banners on our website. Our audience is proven to support the companies that support our show. We can make your budget work for you. So for more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
At spacedoutradio.com, we are keeping you up to date on all the news with the SOR Newswire. Captain Shirk leads the team that is bringing you the news of the day and exclusive stories on everything paranormal and supernatural. It's free to read, it's updated daily, and it's right there for you. The SOR Newswire is a one-stop shop for the news of the day. Check it out at spacedoutradio.com today.
We're taking Sunday nights out of this world on Spaced Out Radio. This is Michael W. Hall, also known as the Paranormal Lawyer. Together, we're going to go on an exciting journey into the unknown. I'm going to bring you some of the best interviews in the paranormal and supernatural to start your new week off on a freaky note. So tune in to Spaced Out Sundays with me, Michael W. Hall, only on spacedoutradio.com.
Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for tuning us on in. We really do appreciate that. Want to remind you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show and on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Talking books tonight, sci-fi, paranormal. What makes a good book? From Writers of the Future. We have John and Emily Goodwin here tonight, and if you're an aspiring writer, you definitely want to check out Writers of the Future. We're going to get into that part in the next hour, but I want to ask you guys this, and John, I'm going to start with you on this. Okay, the one thing that I've noticed with self-publishing, especially in the paranormal world, okay, is everybody and their dog has a book now, except me. I'm working on it. My dog is already finished.
You almost have to.
Me. Yeah. But the point that I'm getting at is, how do we know what is good, what is bad, where we should spend our money, where shouldn't, who should we support? Because there's a lot of people writing books about their opinions, that they have the facts, and in this field there is no facts. I just get really, really frustrated by that at times, man.
Well, that's actually a very good question, because a lot of people, especially right now, we're in a world of fake news. And so a lot of lies are being pawned off as facts, and you take a look and you look at the actual video of what really occurred, and then you see what was reported by whatever the news, and you're like, that's not what they said. Or you take out the one little few words, and then all of a sudden it's a whole different picture than what the whole thing really was. So with respect to, I guess we'll narrow down to things paranormal, while there is more acceptance of it, there's also probably a lot of it intentional by putting in false information out there, which makes it very easy to disbelieve that the things which are true and are potentially believable get masked. So that's all the more reason to know how to write. So you take a look at, we'll talk about, our past good friend, Jim Mars. He had a lot of fantastical data, but he was a really good writer, so he could write it and present it in such a fashion you kind of go, okay, and he also would have enough corroborating evidence that supported what he was saying, and it made sense. He himself was an investigative journalist before he went into writing these books that he did and then doing his continued studies. But to the degree that you can write that you yourself are a good writer, that's a big part of what has to be overcome, and that's why it's important that you learn the basics of writing. It's one thing to have a good story, and it's important to tell a good story if it's a good story. But if you don't know how to do it, then it loses, any credibility, because if it's really good, then why isn't people will associate good writing with truth, whether it's true or not, but they'll associate that. So if you're a good writer and then also have, in the case with this type of paranormal, you need to have your supporting docs that are attributed in the back of the book to show where this is coming from. But you have to tell the story in such a fashion that somebody can actually go like, wow, I get that. And if you're writing fiction, you have to write it in such a fashion that somebody's willing to suspend their disbelief so that they're willing to take, the ride that you're providing. And so this is where, having tools of how to write a story come in, because there are some universal tools that work. It doesn't mean that you have to write this way or this many hours or this many this or that. It just there's certain tools that make a difference on a story that is going to be believable or accepted by a reading audience. So, we spoke earlier about the whole, the various stories in ufology or in the paranormal that have gone on over the years, and so there's been a lot of stories written about, the various things that happened back in the early 1940s. Kenneth Arnold, his whole thing, that was a good story. You had the Roswell, New Mexico. There was the 1952 the UFOs over Washington, D.C. Those stories there, and they're great stories, but they were told, and there's enough stuff like the UFOs over Washington, D.C. There's some great video footage of that. So that makes it really hard from that time period to discount that. So now how are you telling the story that somebody else will want to share it with other people? So you've got two aspects to it. One is telling a story that has the truth in it, if we're talking about, nonfiction, but that's written well enough so that you go, this is a great story. I'm going to share it with my friend Bob, and then you get that word of mouth going, and that makes a big difference on this. If you don't know how to write, then you're going to stumble coming out of the gate. Even if it's a most amazing story, the aliens are right there in front of you talking to you, and you've got your camera going, and also, but if you can't tell the story right, it's going to come across and it'll fall flat on its face. So that's something that I can't stress that enough. And that's the problem, that when people do their own stories and they self-publish, they try to bypass the editorial line, and it's the editors will go through and say, wait a minute, lose the first 3 chapters. Your book doesn't start until chapter 4. You need somebody that can do that and give you that, or at least a writing group that you can trust that will help give you real critiques, and not like mom or wife or husband or kids saying, oh, this is really good. Oh, man, you should get this published, which they have no idea what they're talking about. So that's something I think is really important on this whole subject too. If you're going to take it seriously, then there are rules that if you follow, then that hedges your bet to be able to be a success.
Emily, when you are looking at people who are writing and people who are trying to find their niche in the writing game, what's your best piece of advice that you tell them? Is it pick a topic that everyone else has already done, but you may have a new spin on? Is it whatever comes to your mind? Is it find something that hasn't been done before? How do you approach it?
Well, originality is definitely important, and that's for sure an important thing. People want to read something new. They want to keep reading the same book over and over. But a really good answer for this is a project that I worked on for many months, which we were going to talk about tonight. But you can actually hear from some of the top pros in the field of science fiction fantasy on. We put together a free online writing workshop, which will give all those answers. It's something that we put up back in April, where we recorded some videos of. We got David Farland, who writes a lot of sci-fi and fantasy, and he does some of the Star Wars novels. We've got Tim Powers, who wrote On Stranger Tides, which they made into a Pirates of the Caribbean movie, and he also was one of the inventors of steampunk, if anybody knows what that is. And Orson Scott Card, who wrote Ender's Game, and we did a series of videos with them, and they will tell you not just those questions you asked me, but also how do you put a story together? What is it that makes a good story? How do you come up with the ideas? How do you research it? How do you write description? How do you write narration? How do you create suspense in a story? How do you start it? How do you write the middle? How do you finish a story? Most people write stories, they don't even finish them. It just rolls around and they never complete it. So they tell you how to finish a story and how to, add the emotion. And there's also essays in there. Algis Budrus and L. Ron Hubbard, and you go through this whole course, and by the end of that course, it's about 5 hours worth of videos, there are about 10 essays, and when you get to the end of that, there's little practicals in there, and you write a short story as you're going through the workshop, and at the end you should have a completed story. So that is something I would recommend, obviously, to anybody, because it's up there, and it's up there free at writersofthefuture.com for anybody to go online and do. It's something that we put up during these lockdown times because a lot of people are at home, so it gives them some time to be able to study the workshop and come up with a story. And that's something I definitely recommend. We also do the Writers of the Future contest, and we have about 30 we have the 3 judges that I mentioned that do the online workshop, but we also have this international contest that we do, where I'll always recommend people send their stories in there because it gets seen by all these big New York Times best-selling authors, very familiar sci-fi fantasy authors and stories, people from all over. So that's something I would recommend because, that gets you have to be amateur to enter that contest, and we publish 12 new authors every year. So between those 2 things, I think that would be what I would recommend, just checking those out because that's a way for anybody to break in. It creates a level playing field because this contest is all judge blind. People send their stories in and their name comes off the story. It goes to the judges. There are about 30 of them. And they get seen and read by these amazing best-selling authors. And then it gets narrowed down. We get thousands of stories every year. But it's a good chance, and even if you don't win, you get encouraged to write more. So I definitely would recommend checking it out.
Paranormal stories we hear, and UFO stories, for instance, we hear a lot of the same. Mm-hmm. For instance, in UFOs, I mean, it seems like there's 5 to 10 books a year coming out about Roswell for the last 40 years. Yeah. We see in the paranormal, it's always about haunted Gettysburg, haunted museums, haunted insane asylums. It's about, how many times do we got, and this is no disrespect to the Perrin family, but how many times and how many books do we have to have about, the Conjuring stories, okay, or of anything of that ilk? Why do we, as writers, or do we fall into a mistake of trying to better what's out there already instead of looking for that next story, John?
Well, that's there's a definite validity to writing what you know. And in one of the, I think it's one of the essays whenever it talks about, you can have a thing where somebody is always, he's at home and he's got his farm and he's got the crops that grow and he's got, the farmer that has, the tractor that breaks down every second month and all these things. And he said, I don't have anything interesting. It's just the same old stuff. And then someone from outside of town comes in, some other writer sees this stuff and, oh, this is fantastic, fascinating. And he writes a best-selling novel about it. So one thing that's important is that you write what you know, but that's, again, what comes into being able to write. Because you take a look at, what you just said, there are 5 different stories. And it's interesting how many Mars books have been written? Really, there's a lot of books about going to Mars, being on Mars, getting this about Mars, that about Mars. It goes back to Heinlein when, he's all of this, Lost Stuff from Mars, or the War of the Worlds, the invaders coming from Mars. There's been so many Mars stories, but what makes some of them really stand up and go like scream for attention, and others just kind of like get lost in the wash. And so The Martian, it's a technical book. It's a very technical book. The movie was definitely Hollywoodized quite a bit, but it made its mark, and so it rose above because he himself he knows that technology is able to write about. So he was to be very realistic about that. But if as a writer you write about something that you know about, but you can write well about it, this can it'll make it stand out. Because we're not talking about fictionalizing. We're talking about trying to tell a real story. So part of it is telling something that's in such a fashion that somebody can believe it. Has to be written well enough. So even if it's true, it still has to be written believably. So again, it goes back to quality of writing. And you take a look at what books you've read. I talk about Hunt for Red October, and you were the story. He was a good writer, and that's what made that happen. There's been how many different adventure stories, military fiction, all that stuff have been done. And actually, he wrote science fiction, even though he didn't call it that, because it was all about futuristic technology. But because he's a good writer, his stories rose above the other military fiction, the other adventure fiction stories that so many other people wrote. So that has a lot to do with it. So whether there's been 3,265 books about Roswell, if something is really well written, again, going back to Jim Marrs, he wrote about subjects that were, how many times was the Kennedy assassination written about? His book rose to the surface, and it was even used by Oliver Stone to make his movie. So a well-written book, I can't overemphasize that enough, the importance of that, because if it's a story worth telling and you've got data about it, then tell the story. But if you tell it so that other people can really understand it and appreciate it and go, wow, I never looked at it that way, it will rise above the others. So it's not that it's only Roswell and a half a dozen other significant incidents that have happened, but I haven't really read any book, maybe they've been written, but about like the Air Force sighting a couple of years ago, which had so many different videos and different commentary on it. But maybe there's books about it, but I haven't seen anything worth that said, okay, you need to read this book because this is way cool, like I did with all the Jim Marrs books. So does that answer your question?
Well, it does and it doesn't, okay? Where it does is the fact that we have to use more imagination. Where it doesn't is the fact that I realize you can't put your own head, John, on someone else's or into someone else's mind to try and figure out, what the heck, you probably see out of every 100 books you and Emily see, you probably look at about, I'm going to say, and maybe I'm being gracious here, 50% of them where you're like, what the hell did I just read? And that isn't an insult to that isn't an insult to the person who put their blood, sweat, and tears into it, but it's the fact that it's an art, it's a talent. You have to, be able to, like we've said, paint a picture. So my question to you is this: if you want to encourage writing and encourage people to be better, and I'm saying on paranormal topics, as a publisher, you must be begging for people to find another story that hasn't been told. Bring up the interest, bring up the intellect, bring up something that we haven't heard before. That's what I'm waiting for, and I think most of the audience is too.
Mm-hmm. Sure, and that's one thing that we get with Writer of the Future. I'm always amazed because that's one of the things that judges look for is something that's new and different. But have you had Preston Bennett on your show before?
Yes, and he'll be coming on later this month as well.
Good. So Preston, he entered the contest 47 times, Writer of the Future, before winning. And a writer writes. And the thing that Oliver Judge, which will also say in this course that Emily was talking about, you have to write a lot and you have to read a lot to see how other people deal with things. Like right now, if you compared your show right now to what it was when you first started, however many years ago, there's no comparison. You're so much better at it now because you've done it. You know the pitfalls. You know what to avoid. You know how to, when a topic's going sour, when a guest is totally dull, so you know how to do the pre-qual before you even do the interview now, which you didn't know before. There's all kinds of things that you know now that you didn't before, and you've got so many people listening to you now because they love listening to you. It's an audience that grew because as you grew and got more competent and more stimulating with what you're doing, same thing happens as a writer. You need to write. And so we've got some people that will enter 25 times, 30. They've been submitting for like 5, 10, 15 years before they finally win the competition. It's really, the competition is dagger sharp, on what they're up against on the stuff here. But that's how when a person wins, you know that they're a good investment in your $25 for their next book because they've made that cut, they've made that grade. But it takes a lot of work to become a good writer. You can't say, okay, I got this idea, I'm going to sit down and write a book, and now all of a sudden I'm an author. You can, if you're self-publishing, you say, yeah, you can say you're an author, but what I'm talking about is someone that people are going to want to put down their hard-earned cash to be able to buy and read. You need to work and work and work and build up to where you're that type of a quality to do it. And again, the stories of like The Martian, those are so much the exception to the rule that it's not even worth getting into them because the normal thing, the thing that works. If you want to again do it so that you're going to have that somewhat of a guarantee, and even then, what Kevin Anderson and Rebecca Mesta, his wife, did, they had a full year's worth of living expenses in the bank before they quit their day job. And once they had a full year's worth of money to cover their rent, their utilities, their food, their insurance, all that stuff, once they had a year, that's when they quit their day job, so they could then invest, all the time and energies into writing, and then build up from there. But it's not an easy profession by any means, and if you're looking to make it as your primary means of income, there is a lot of competition, and it really is a matter of really working and writing and writing and writing and reading so that you know how people, what made this book so successful, what about it? And you go, oh, that's how they did that. And so you get that yourself. It doesn't mean you're copying that. It just means you learn that technique so you can apply it yourself. And that's why it's important to be taught by professionals who, in this case, who want to share their hard-won knowledge with you, because they so much believe in the contest. So they love to see it, because like Orson Scott Card says, I want to do this thing here because I want to have some more good stuff to read. This is my guarantee of doing that. So that's just an important thing that you've got to. It's not something that just happens. You got to work at it. It's hard work, and it's not something you're going to just say, okay, I'm going to write a book and then it's going to be a big seller. It probably isn't until you actually really master it and have it properly edited, or have written enough so that you can write something that really communicates and people are really interested in, because you've got all the right ingredients there. But you have to write, several of the writers say you've got throw away your first 1,000,000 words, so it's...
That's not discouraging or anything.
But if you're really serious about this stuff, you're to write novels, it's, and some of these guys, like Brandon Sanderson, is one of our judges, and he was a finalist. He was ready to quit writing when he was he received a finalist cert from Writers of the Future, and he said, okay, I'm not going to give up. And it's a good thing he didn't. He's one of the best-selling fantasy writers in the world right now. Joe Black, who's writes amazing. He was a finalist. I met him last year at a convention. He said, yeah, I was a finalist from Writers of the Future. There's so many popular writers right now that got their start from Writers of the Future. Either they pro'd out, so they couldn't enter anymore because they didn't sold, or they won and then went on from there. So that's kind of like, I think it's so important that a writer has got to write.
Absolutely. Absolutely. John and Emily Goodwin, I'm going to get you to hold on right now because we are going to go to break at the top of the hour. John and Emily Goodwin are here, and we are going to be getting into Writers of the Future. We've discussed it a little bit here, but what's this contest all about? If you are a budding writer, this is something you're going to want to check out. If you want to check out the topics, be original. It's okay to be original. It's okay to find a new story. It's okay, because that's what they're yearning for. That's what I'm yearning for. Tell me about it. Sell me on it. Let me read your book, but make it worth my while. Not just me, but everybody out there, really. Let's just be honest. There's more people important than me out there. But write a book. Get it done. Make it original. We'll talk more about books coming up with John and Emily Goodwin here on Spaced Out Radio.
Hi, this is Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/spacedoutradio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at mightymoosebeard.com today.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do? What to do?
Why not get Bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning Bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
The party is always on at the Moose Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is where you want to be when visiting Canada's West Coast. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose cranks up the rock while serving some of the best-rated food in the city. The menu starts at $6.95. Why party anywhere else in Vancouver when the Moose is right there? Get your horns up and rock with the Moose, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and do we have some cool swag for you to pick up? All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
Are you an experiencer of something strange that can't be explained? Do you want help finding out what's going on? I'm Ryan Stacy, head of the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We've teamed up with Spaced Out Radio to investigate cases filled out in the SOR Sightlines report. We are independent and there's no cost to what we do. All we need is your experience. Let's find out what's happening together on the SOR Sightlines report.
Hi there, this is the paranormal lawyer Michael W. Hall. I'd like to invite you to listen in each Sunday night where we're going to open up your eyes to everything strange and paranormal. I will be hosting some great guests with topics that affect us all, such as UFOs, ghosts, and everything paranormal. Let's learn together on Spaced Out Radio Sunday with myself, Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer at spacedoutradio.com.
Hello, space travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Second hour of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate your time. I want to remind all of you that if you have missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. We welcome back everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates across the continent and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Ubiquidate. Ubiquidate is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. What's it like to write a book? How do you make a good book? What is these publishing companies looking for? John and Emily Goodwin are here. They're book publishers. They're also with Writers of the Future. And Emily, John, we bring you back here. I want to know, first and foremost, what is Writers of the Future all about? Let's start with you, Emily.
All right. So the Writers of the Future, it's an international writing contest that's been going since the early 80s. We're on year 37 right now. And basically, it's a contest in speculative fiction, so you have science fiction, fantasy, some light horror, and it's open to anybody, anywhere in the world. It's a blind judge contest where we have about 30 different judges, and who have, they have various credits and various genres, and people send in their stories all year long, and they get judged, and the name, when I say blind judge, meaning like, when the person sends their story in, the name gets removed from the story and anything about the person who's submitting, and the story gets sent to the judges at that point. So it's just based on merit alone. You have to be an amateur to be able to enter the contest, and every year we publish 12 new authors, and there's also an illustrator contest, so we publish 12 authors, 12 illustrators every year in an annual anthology. It's called L. Ron Hubbard Presents Writers of the Future. And the contest was started by L. Ron Hubbard and still sponsored by him. And he basically, back in the 80s, he was a writer back in the 30s and 40s, actually. Big pulp author and did many genres. He wrote everything from Western, science fiction, fantasy, adventure stories. And he started a contest bak in Ketchikan, Alaska in the 40s, where he had a Golden 10 Award, and he was introducing people who submitted stories at that time to his agent in New York. And so, circle around to the 80s and got together with some of his friends, some other great authors, and he put together the Writers of the Future contest. And it's something that's free for anybody to enter, and you can go online to writersofthefuture.com and you send your story in, and it's up to 17,000 words, and like I said, you have to be an amateur to enter, and people send in their stories. It's broken out to 4 quarters every year, so each quarter there's going to be a first, second, and third place winner, and each of those winners, the first, second, third place for every quarter gets published in the annual anthology, and they also get flown out to Hollywood for a week-long workshop, where the judges fly out. We fly the winners out to Hollywood, and they do like a writing workshop boot camp for a week, and then it ends in a big gala awards event where everybody gets their award, and then there's cash prizes. So each first, second, third place winner, they get $500 to $1,000, and then the grand prize winner will get an additional check for $5,000. And then we send them out on book signing tours, and we book them for media, and basically do whatever we can to help launch their careers. And that's why it's for amateur authors only, because earlier on when we started the show, we talked about that a little bit, about, how do you compete with a self-publisher or a big famous author? Well, this is a way that, it's the way that it's structured is just so that it makes it a level playing field for anybody to basically enter and have themselves be seen, where it's not who you know that gets you in. It's really based on talent alone. So that's like in a summary of what the contest is.
And because of the nature of the contest being blind judging, we've got people, it's all races, all creeds, all colors, all ethnicities. We've got winners, I think, from over 50 over 50 countries now. We've got entries from over 175 countries. But it's strictly by the quality of the story, so there's no other qualification for it. And so for the writing contest, the youngest that we've actually had win is right around 20 years old, because you need to have a bit of a mastery of grammar and English. And like I said before, you need to build up your ability to write a story. And for the art contest, the Illustrators of the Future contest, we've had high school winners there because, for whatever reason, they're just like dang good. They've mastered being able to use a computer younger, and they just write really good stuff. But the oldest we've ever, not as a winner, well, the oldest winner has probably been in their 70s, and the oldest entrant that I know of at least is 102 years old. So there's no, we have no requirement other than the fact that you can't be a pro, and you can enter the contest, and all are welcome. And the worst that's going to happen is you'll get an email back from the contest director, Joni Labaki, saying, thank you very much for entering. You didn't win, but please submit again. You're not going to get any judging. You're not going to get anything that would discourage you. The whole purpose of the competition as set up by Mr. Hubbard was to encourage the aspiring writer and to provide that helping hand that isn't so proffered out there so much. So that's what it's all about, and that's why you have some of the biggest names in science fiction and fantasy since the very beginning have lent their name to Ron Hubbard's name to this. In fact, the contest started right after he published Battlefield Earth. When Battlefield Earth came out in '82, it kind of like his name came back because he was one of the most popular writers in the 30s and 40s, and then he went on to write Dianetics in 1950, and then in 1980 he went to celebrate 50 years as a professional writer, and that's when he wrote Battlefield Earth. It got published in '82, and then in '83 is when he started this contest, when putting his name on the book cover would help other people getting started. So his name, along with some of the first judges, like you've got Robert Silverberg, he's still a judge. He was one of the founding judges. But Theodore Sturgeon, Jack Williamson was one of the first judges, Roger Zelazny. I mentioned Frank Herbert. He became a judge the second year. He passed away shortly after he became a judge, so it was for a year. But it's interesting. The essay he wrote that was published in Writers of the Future, I've talked to a person that was in communication with him at the time, and he said, I got to finish this essay. So he finished his essay. That was the last thing he wrote before he passed, was the essay he wrote for Writers of the Future. Anne McCaffrey was a judge as of year number 2, and she's a stalwart supporter of the whole contest because of what it did for all the other aspiring writers. There's so many major names in science fiction and fantasy that have been part of this that it's become now. In fact, we even had a review that came out from a library review publication saying that no single source other single source than Writers of the Future has done more for science fiction and fantasy than Writers of the Future. And so that's been really good. And then the same thing with the Illustrators of the Future competition, which also is for amateurs. But some of the original major names in illustration and pulp fiction, like with Ed Cartier, Leo and Diane Dillon, Will Eisner, Frank Frazetta, Frank Kelly Freeze, Jack Kirby, Paul Laird. These are the original judges for the competition, and it's continued to go on from there now, to where you've got other major names that are still the leading lights of illustration, but now as it's gone into movie production, we've got one of our newer illustrator judges named, let's see, we've got Craig Elliott. He's the lead art director for Netflix. We've got Mike Perkins. He's one of the top artists for, I think it's Marvel. So we've got these types of judges that really want to be able to contribute and pay it forward themselves. Larry Elmore, who did all the original art creation for Dungeons and Dragons, he's one of the judges. He loves this thing here. So we've got a lot of people like that just want to put their name to it to help the other aspiring writer, other aspiring artists, and that's why the competition, now 37 years old, is it's beyond any question of its importance and significance to the furtherance of science fiction and fantasy. And because of this course now that Emily wrote, that she put together, that Scott Card, Tim Powers, and Dave Wolverton or Dave Farland did the videos for, it provides a further helping hand, quite in addition to an award-winning podcast for Writers of the Future. We also have a forum that we have for anybody that wants some help on, with other writers and past winners. We have a forum that helps them with that. And we have a blog with so many of the essays from these past judges about, the art of writing, and then a lot of people with their own stories about how they overcome their things. They're just because they're published doesn't mean they had to overcome major mountains of obstacles to make it. And that's what some people are amazed to learn, that, like, oh, they had to do that too. Like Nadia Corfor, who's writing for Shuri. She writes the comics for Shuri, and she's a major writer right now, especially in the African storyline, fantasy line. And when she wrote her first story, she was paralyzed. She actually had a surgery that was a failed surgery, and she was paralyzed from the waist down as a result of that, and she had to work herself back up to being able to walk. And that was her first character, was a character that could fly, because she couldn't walk, so she had a character that could fly. It's amazing when you find out what people had to overcome in order to make it. And it's not just like, oh yeah, well, they got the gift and they did it. No, they work hard. They work really hard to make it go. And that's one thing that we really validate with Writers of the Future, and the judges like to share.
The topics that the writers have when they submit them to you guys, what are the parameters on that? Like, does it have to be sci-fi? Does it have to be paranormal? Or are you just looking for creativity?
Well, I'm just going to read out just from the rules from the Writers of the Future book, which is in the back of the book. It's also on the website. But what it says in here is, let's see, so the story...
It's up to $17,000.
Yeah, so no entry fee is required, and all rights in the story remain the property of the author. All types of science fiction, fantasy, and dark fantasy are welcome. So that's rule number one. So that's what the requirements are for it.
That's pretty broad, and I mean that in a good way.
It is, but it's a good thing. So it's otherwise called speculative fiction, and it's all the different categories, and that's why the judges we have in this competition are they cover the whole spectrum of types of science fiction, fantasy, horror. You've got the guys that specialize in there's light science fiction, there's a hard science fiction. There's alternate history. There's all different kinds of stuff, and they've all done all kinds of stuff. You've got in the thing with the competition, because of the fact you've got such a spectrum of all kinds of people, that it's amazing. Like in our current volume, there's a lot of for the first time in a while, there's some stories that get into let's see, on A Word That Means Everything. That's very much Christian fiction would be kind of maybe with that category that falls into there. Whereas a few years ago we had a bunch of, well, actually it's been several years ago, there were a lot of the stories that we had which were steampunk, which wasn't really known as a genre yet. So Rise of the Future is usually about half a dozen years ahead of the curve, because if these are going to be the new main writers, then what they're writing now is what's going to be being read half a dozen years down the road, because that's what they're bringing to the table. And so you've got people like Robert Sawyer, who himself was a finalist multiple times before coming out, and he's now writes his specific type of science fiction, hard science fiction that he does. Dean Wesley Smith writes a lot of stuff that's more of a mystery science fiction stuff. He was the first person that walked across the getting an award back 37 years ago. Sean Williams, very much he does fantasy stuff, but he also, or young adult stuff rather, but he also has hard science fiction. He was a winner about 20 years ago.
Robert J. Sawyer is our Canadian judge.
Oh, yeah, Robert Sawyer. Do you know him, perchance?
Yeah, Robert was just on this show a couple of weeks ago. He's amazing.
He's great. That Oppenheimer alternative, that's an amazing story.
Oh, yeah.
I love that story.
Yeah, he's pretty
so
talented.
Good. I listened to. He's an amazingly talented guy.
Yeah, and such a nice guy.
I know. Hard to believe he's from Ontario with a personality like that.
Hey, now I'm from Ontario. I
You
guess
got
I'm
out.
fully Americanized, though.
You got out.
I got out 30 years ago.
But after talking to you now on this show, she's going to start doing her long O now.
Exactly. Oh, yeah, your accent's coming back. As soon as we're done with this, your accent is totally coming back. John and Emily Goodwin are here tonight on Spaced Out Radio talking about Writers of the Future, a great competition that you, if you're an aspiring writer, can sign up for. I highly suggest you do. Now, with this competition that you are creating, how many doors does it open for people even if they don't win? I'm sure, if you play second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth through say 20th, I'm pretty sure that there's some excitement in the writing that's coming.
Yeah, I mean, each quarter we have also there's finalists, there's honorable mentions, and people will get a certificate for their honorable mention or their finalist or their semi-finalist, and people will actually use those on their resumes, and it puts their story that they send into editors to the top of the slush pile, just because Writers of the Future has such a good name in the publishing world. They know that if they've made it here, they've been, they've gone through a lot to, make it to any, to being even a finalist or an honorable mention. So they definitely get moved to the top of the slush pile just from having a certificate that says honorable mention. So
yeah, there was a press release that came out like 2 weeks ago from somebody with his first novel, and he's part of his resume where he was a finalist in Writers of the Future. So it really has a lot. So to answer your question, for the writing contest, I've talked to people that have gone into, after winning this contest, they then move into writing screenplays, or they like to write plays for Broadway and off Broadway. Some people, because the tech of writing itself needs to be mastered for a lot of different professions. Some go into writing service manuals. We have one person that was a writer winner and an illustrator winner about 7 years ago, and she's now moving over to writing service manuals for a special branch of the Air Force because of her ability to write and to illustrate. So that's what she's expanding, and she'll be able to go public with it in the not too distant future, in which I will feature then on my podcast and as a blog entry on this stuff. But there's a lot of things that you need to be able to write for and be able to write good for in order to succeed, because there is a lot of competition out there. The more qualified you can make yourself, the better it's going to be to help guarantee and ensure your success. So in writing, that's kind of like the various branches that they've gone into. We do have some guys that also go into what I love, the illustrators go into doing storyboards for shows, and illustrating for comics, they also go into how to write comics, because that's its own technology too, and how to write a comic. So you got the sequential art, which is the illustration side, but it also is how to write the stories themselves. So we have winners that have gone into that, into finalists. And then the artists, when they win that, because for both competitions, the winners, we have a week-long workshop where they are actually taught by professionals in all aspects of writing. So it's not just like, okay, here we're going to teach you how to write a science fiction book or a fantasy book. It's not like this is how you do it. You've got Tim Powers that'll take a year or more to write a novel, even though he's a multiple World Fantasy Award winner. Kevin Anderson writes a lot of science fiction, and some young adult stuff. He'll do like 6 books a year. You've got Orson Scott Card that does his religious fiction with his LDS writing, but he also did all of his hard sci-fi like he did with Ender's Game. Sean Williams does a lot of YA, but he also goes into his hard sci-fi. Rob Sawyer does his psychological science fiction stuff, and then he does his total, inside the brain of a computer in his WWW series. So you got all types of stuff there. So they'll come in and they'll talk about their different aspects of writing, so a person can pick and choose what he wants out of it and see, oh yeah, I like that. That sounds good. And the same thing for the illustrators. They'll come in and have somebody that writes, that creates art for, like I said, for Netflix. They do stuff doing storyboards. They do illustrations. They do paintings. They'll do all types of stuff with art. And so they'll go over all those aspects of how to take your next step in your career. And so that's what we try to impart as well with the podcast, the Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast, which is also on writersofthefuture.com, where I've had almost 90 guests now, all aspects of science fiction and fantasy writing and illustration. I even had Tom Doherty, who's the publisher of Tor, talk about the future of publishing. So we try to provide as much as we can, just to provide the data that is needed for someone who wants to make a career of writing or art, and give them some tools to help them succeed. So that's an aspect of the contest too that we're really proud of.
Well, that's excellent. That is excellent. We only have about 1 minute here before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour. John and Emily Goodwin talking book publishing. What don't you publish? What do you not want to see in Writers of the Future?
Our stuff is geared towards middle school on up. So if it's appropriate for middle school readers on up, then it'll make it in there. Otherwise, there's other outlets if somebody wants to do those types of things. But we don't go into the extreme horror. Profanity is PG. Sex is PG. And so we keep it like that. But there's no scarcity of stories to qualify for that. I mean, we get thousands of entries every quarter. I mean, we're huge. And so it's between both competitions. So that's basically what we look for in that stuff. So if it's somebody violates that, and if it's somebody who's trying to copycat somebody else, that won't make the cut. That's for sure. Someone that tries to go into, here's another take on a Grimm's fairy tale. Originality is a key part of what's being looked for by the judges. And I'm always amazed at how much originality still exists.
All right, you guys hold on, sit tight, as we're going to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Back to Paranormal Stories, Battlefield Earth, and more on Spaced Out Radio coming up with John and Emily, who is Canadian, still Canadian. Goodwin, coming up next on Spaced Out Radio.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
At spacedoutradio.com, we are keeping you up to date on all the news with the SOR Newswire. Captain Shirk leads the team that is bringing you the news of the day and exclusive stories on everything paranormal and supernatural. It's free to read, it's updated daily, and it's right there for you. The SOR Newswire is a one-stop shop for the news of the day. Check it out at spacedoutradio.com today.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
Hello, Space Travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
Are you looking for great advertising value for your company? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. We have a multitude of places to get your name out there, including commercial ads during the show, special promotions, and banners on our website. Our audience is proven to support the companies that support our show. We can make your budget work for you. So for more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
Cold drinks, great food, and the best music in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is the place to be, open until 2 a.m. nightly. Everything on the menu starts at just $6.95. Who serves food that cheap anymore? At the Moose, you'll never know who you'll run into. Rock stars, actors, athletes. It's the place everyone wants to be. So join us at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
We're taking Sunday nights out of this world on Spaced Out Radio. This is Michael W. Hall, also known as the Paranormal Lawyer. Together, we're going to go on an exciting journey into the unknown. I'm going to bring you some of the best interviews in the paranormal and supernatural to start your new week off on a freaky note. So tune in to Spaced Out Sundays with me, Michael W. Hall, only on spacedoutradio.com.
You wanted new SOR gear, and now you can have it. The SOR Vault is fully stocked with t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and everything in between, with great logos for you to choose from. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com, click on the SOR Vault, and go shopping. Pricing is quite affordable, and you can look good representing your favorite show. So go to our website and pick up your new SOR wear at the SOR Vault today.
We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Really do appreciate you taking the time. Want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Tonight we are talking with publishers John and Emily Goodwin. Writers of the future is what we're going by here. And we're going to take it into a sci-fi paranormal type realm here. And we did this a little bit earlier, but we didn't really go into a lot of detail about it. And this is kind of where I want to turn the corner. And John, we'll start with you on this one. In regards to paranormal type books or UFO or Bigfoot type of, cryptid type of sci-fi, what are you looking for? What is the story that you are searching for, or the ideas that you are searching for that is going to capture your attention?
Okay, so the main thing on this is that you've got to create an environment of, if it's the Sasquatch, or if it's a UFO, or if it's a second dimension through a window, or whatever type of phenomenon, you need to build the environment so that I recognize, I know that space, I know that room, I know that location. And then because you've got me there, you can now insert the paranormal aspect to the story in it, so that I'm totally willing to suspend. I've mentioned that term before, suspend my disbelief, but then it's like, oh, that makes sense. And this is one of the things that Tim Powers goes into on this workshop thing that Emily was mentioning about, because he specializes in that type of paranormal, fantastical storytelling. He'll talk about the freeways here in Hollywood or in Los Angeles, and he'll talk about them, but he'll have something about it like is a little quirky, and then he'll turn that, and that's where he enters in his paranormal stuff. Or he'll have a story about a missing footprint at the Grauman's Chinese Theater. So he'll build the whole thing around Grauman's Chinese Theater, and he'll have the various locations that are actually there. You see them on a map, but now it gets into paranormal between other dimensions, and now all of a sudden, oh wow. Because he'll take something, there's a hole there, something that doesn't make sense, and then he'll fill it in with his paranormal. So that's the main thing that he and several other authors will get into, and that's what I look for when I read a story. Is it's got to be grounded in reality, so that when you put in the fantastical, that I can go, oh, that makes sense. I can see that. You can still picture it. It's a very smooth transition, and if it's and that's obviously, we're talking about science fiction or fantasy. We're not talking about a nonfiction story. But that's what's needed on that, so that it's grounded in reality, so that you can bridge over and accept it. And that's obviously requires a good storytelling. But that's what I look for on it. And that's the originality, is how you can then transition that to make it something that you can go, oh, wow, that's really cool. I get that. When it's like a regular, I'm just down the block here, and all of a sudden, I had no idea that building right on the corner of Hollywood and Highland is really, and there's the paranormal.
Mm-hmm. Is there a story just out of the top of your mind that you have been waiting for somebody to write? Like, maybe not even sci-fi, or it could be fiction, it could be real. John, is that story out there? What, as a publisher, take away the contest, take away everything. Just John as the reader who loves to delve into a good book. What's the book you think is missing out there?
Well, one that I would love to read, and I have a problem that Einstein has at least for the time being, has effectively stopped faster than light travel. And it's been so thoroughly stopped that attempts to exceed that have been, like in the Skylark series, like a fluke of an experiment in a guy's garage, like I said, with E. Doc Smith, or a gift from the Arisians from another galaxy that gives us stuff that we can then do so we can overcome the Bosconians. So something I would love to myself read something like, wow, that makes sense, because it's, I mean, even amongst our judges, they're believers. You know, no, you can't go faster than the speed of light, and that totally blocks us from ever reaching out in these other galaxies, these other things that we can look at our telescopes to see that we'll never reach them. You know, so the vision is there from like Star Wars, but then how to transition that's something I would love to be able to read. They go like, wow. And that would be the inspiration for scientists to go, I'm going to see if I can do that, which is what whenever put in the introduction of science fiction, said herald of possibility. So I'd love to see something like that directly addresses that. I think it'd be so cool, because we need to be doing that type of stuff, and right now we're totally landlocked as a species.
How about for you, Emily? What's the book you are craving to read?
Well, there's a couple different things. One, I'm interested in seeing something about another dimension, being able to go back and forth between. I know there is some, you got the Doctor Who and all that, but just something different along that line. And then, also there are a lot of stories on space, but as of, the beginning of this year, they started the Space Force, and I've been working a lot with the Air Force, and became this year a honorary commander for the U.S. Space Force. And they have just some amazing things happening, and there's a lot going on with, satellites and so forth. And I became very interested in more potential for space, but more humanized. And I know, we talk about humans traveling in space, but I want a new adventure, a different type of space adventure where, we've expanded much farther out from here. And, at the moment, the ones that I've read, the reality of it, I know in The Martian, he gets very technical on how it could be done. But there's a lot of those types of details. People are like, oh, yeah, we're just going to jump in a spaceship and then travel 20 planets away from here and colonize somewhere. But it's not quite that easy. So I'm curious, would like to read something along that line of, how it could be done.
What about for nonfiction, though? Okay, Emily, I'm going to stick with you on this one. Then, John, I'll get your opinion. Is the story out there that hasn't been told yet? Is there always a story out there that hasn't been told? Is what I'm trying to ask, number one. But number two, we've heard a bunch of the ghost books. We've heard a bunch of UFO books. We've heard a bunch of experiencer-type books where people who call themselves authors take a bunch of words that a bunch of people give them in interviews and glue them together. Okay? We've heard all of that. Like, is there something captivating about real, true events that is still out there, like the Amityville Horror or something along those lines?
Yeah, there are a whole bunch of crazy things I think that happen out there, but I don't like to read scary stuff that much, to be honest.
I'm not saying Amityville Horror. I mean, choose your story. Maybe Travis Walton. Maybe it's something to do with fairies or mermaids or garden gnomes. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. I was just thinking of mermaids the other day, and I thought, someone ought to write a book about like a real raw mermaid book. Like, mermaids are down under the water, and then they get some they get sick of all the pollution, so they revolt, or apparently they recently came up because I saw an article about, all these people discarding face masks into the ocean, and someone went to collect a whole bunch of them up. I mean, who would have thought we'd ever have a problem with dumped face masks in the ocean? But I thought if we had mermaids, that would really piss them off. So, that would be cool, some mermaid stories.
All right, I got a question coming from Dave Ole in the YouTube chat room, and they're asking, John, what do you and Emily think is the best book that's ever been made into a movie?
Let's see. One of the things that I've experienced is that Hollywood tends to do their own thing with the book. Not probably the only, but one of the ones that I'm aware of is Lord of the Rings, which that stayed pretty true to the book, and I really enjoyed those movies. But a big problem that I've seen in general, and one that we definitely experienced with Battlefield Earth, was that the book is just, the thing you got with a book is very epic in scope, and books don't have a budget. You know, when you have this type of a spaceship or this type of a device, there's no budget to it. It's just words. But when Hollywood gets a hold of it, they need to do something with it, and so then they need to take, okay, well, this is how we can substitute that. We can substitute it down, and then what does the budget dictate? Okay, let's substitute it down some more. And so now you've got a book that is just beloved, that then, after getting through Hollywood, is more, it's been altered so that it's not. So my actual honest answer to the question is Lord of the Rings, which I think that's a brilliant fantasy series, and the movies were just amazingly well made. I love those things, but I love them as much as I love reading the books.
Don't blame me. How about for you, Emily?
That's a good question. Sometimes when I've read a book, I don't even want to see the movie. But some of them have been pretty good. I'd have to agree with John. The Lord of the Rings, they did pretty good. Orson Scott Card wouldn't agree with me. I thought Ender's Game was pretty good. I know they changed the ages of all the kids in there, but I still enjoyed the movie. Orson Scott Card wouldn't agree with me on that one for sure.
He didn't like the movie at all.
No, but yeah.
I think the only
coming out, and I know there's a book
I think the only time that I have enjoyed a movie better than the book was Field of Dreams. And it kills me to say that because W.P. Kinsella lives in a small town in British Columbia called Yale. I think when he was alive, I'm not sure if he's still alive or not, but very haunted community named Yale. And long story short, I read the book because I'm the same way. I always think that the book is going to be better than the movie, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. Where is it? Where's this going? But this also leads to a great question from Tommy here in the chat room, who is asking, do either of you have a favorite underdog writer?
That's a hard question.
Yeah.
I had and it mostly amounts to people that are very active with, because I have so many writers I'm already working with between our judges and winners, but we have some people that really, really, really work hard. They submit to the contest, they do the various workshops, they've gone to, they've read various books, they're really trying to make it. And so I'm very much hoping for them to win, and sometimes they become a finalist. So they're not even necessarily, I'm not going to assign them names, but the people that are, maybe they're finalists, but they're very active and they're really trying to make it go. And so for them, once they make it to being a finalist, that they're like within spit and distance of making it. And so they're working it. They submit every quarter. They're trying to do this. They're trying to do that. They've done, all these different things. I'm really rooting for them to make it, because they're taking all the right steps. They just have to, and for me, it's an attempt to encourage them, keep on going, don't quit, and then they bust through. But like Preston Dennett, he was 47 times. He quit, he started again, he quit, he started again. And the only thing he didn't throw away the first time he quit writing was his Rise of the Future books. He said, I got to make it. And, so it's those types of people that I root for, because they really are, they're not just like making the grunt noise. They're actually doing the actions to improve and make themselves a better writer. And those are the guys that I always will root for.
How about for you, Emily?
Oh boy, that's a tough one.
Ditto.
So there's a guy that he's been trying to get his work out for so long, and he just wrote this amazing story last year, which I believe he's novelizing now, but it is just so awesome. His name is Wolf Moon, and he wrote a story called Super Duper Moon Girl and the Amazing Moon Toddler, and that was it's won several awards now, and it's about a 12-year-old disabled social media influencer on the moon with her robot dog. I mean, it was just like the cutest, best story, and I just thought it was a great one, and I can see why he's going on to win several awards for it. It was great.
Excellent. I always appreciate that, because that way our audience has an opportunity to follow ahead, because there's still a lot of people who read books out there. Yes, they're out there.
That's a
somewhere.
Fact.
That
is a fact.
And
yeah.
We have about 6.5 minutes before we have to go to break at the top of the hour. John and Emily Goodwin are our guests tonight. We're talking novels. Okay, you guys mentioned something both a little bit earlier on, and it was about like books on Mars. Be honest with me. You get another book on Mars. Are you just rolling your eyes and throwing it in the garbage can? You could tell us. Nobody's gonna know.
See, I would have been rolling my eyes prior to The Martian, but then all of a sudden, like, wow, I was done with Mars. I was happy with Mars with War of the Worlds. Okay, good. I'm happy with it. Mars did a good thing there. That intrigued me, and they came, and then they went home. So good. I'm done. But then
Well, I don't know. Elon Musk is keeping Mars interesting.
I mean, who knows what's going to happen? Like, we've been exploring Mars. We've got what's been the radius of what we've been? It's like a 10-mile radius or whatever it is that we've been actually exploring with rover. It's not that much. Who's to say that once we get out there, there's not some? Now we're getting into science fiction and high tech, but who's to say that there's not some type of a wave dome that's covering up a whole complex there of this whole alien installation that we don't know about. And as soon as we get there, we go, oh my gosh, and then it's a whole new story. That's a whole new thing that could happen, that could be plausibly set up, which would be a wonderful story. And that would pull in some of the earlier Pulp Fiction science fiction that everybody now poo-poos. But maybe it's going to change, because there's, science and science fiction evolves and it changes. Like the science right now is, science has always been gospel. It's been like, then it gets disproven, and the new science becomes the new gospel, and it's always this is the way it is, and that's just the way it is, until the new discovery, and then the new science becomes the new gospel. So right now we've got the current gospel, like I mentioned before, about Einstein. That's the law, and it's not going to change. And it's been proven by, here's this equation, which is very complex, and you have to be really smart to understand. But before that, you had Newtonian, or there's probably the stuff in between it, but Newton had his laws of physics, which were disproven then, or shown to be incomplete by later forms of physics. So who's to say, like on Mars, that you're not going to find something that actually happens there, because we're only evaluating from our level of technology, and some of the technology can come in and be operating there on Mars that we're unable to detect right now because our level of technology isn't high enough. So that would be a whole totally cool story, but it'd have to be told in such a way that it'd be plausible for somebody to go, okay, I can see that. But that'd be a hard one because there's so much quote-unquote proof that Mars is desolate. There's nothing there. It would require a really good storyteller to put that together.
I love this question coming from Tommy here, who is asking, is a book ever just too long?
It depends if
now, we're not talking
we're not talking
Kevin Costner's Waterworld movie a number of years ago. That was terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah. I never finished War and Peace. That was a really, 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 really long one. I know people
How far did you
have.
get?
So, yes, books
How
can
far
definitely
did
be
you
too long, and editors, I think I got halfway through it. But that's one thing an editor is good for, is to chop off the fat. And it's not that you can't, because you've got some people like the current, we have one of our judges that writes these books that are 750 to 900,000 words, and they're just really long stories, but they're really good, and people love them. People are into those really long stories, but not everybody can write something that's like that. So you've got to make sure there's no fat there in the story, and that's like I said, that's what an editor's for, or a good writing group can help you with on that. But that's, I think, is really important to adjudicate that. So you can have a story that's 1 million words long, but it's got to hold together, and not like, okay, I can skip these 3 chapters. No, I can skip these 10 chapters. It's got to be something that each chapter contributes to it.
What's your thoughts, Emily?
Yeah, I mean, I think a book can be too long. I read both short and long stories, but like I said, if it just goes on and it's not really going anywhere and it's just a bunch of babble, I will put it down. So, I think Brandon Sanderson, he writes pretty chunky books. They're the Mistborn series, I think they're 400,000 words, something like that. I think that's a good limit, I would say. I don't want to read too much bigger than that.
How many chapters is that?
Book, but,
how many chapters is that?
I think he broke it out into 30-something chapters.
I don't know. I've read one of his Mistborn, but that's...
All right. Well, I'm going to get you guys to hold on right there because we are going to go to break here at the top of the hour, and we got you guys, John and Emily Goodwin, for another 30 minutes. We have until the bottom of the hour. Then we are going to hook up with Shane in Vancouver, talk a little Bigfoot right across Canada on the shift. Then we'll get into the SOR Newswire. Then we'll get into the Thought of the Dave. We got a jam-packed Hour 3 coming up next on Spaced Out Radio, so just make sure you stay tuned on in. More of the mighty SOR next.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there. The SOR Vault is open for business, and do we have some cool swag for you to pick up? All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
Hello, Space Travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month. And follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do? What to do?
Why not get Bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning Bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
Hi there, this is the paranormal lawyer Michael W. Hall. I'd like to invite you to listen in each Sunday night, where we're going to open up your eyes to everything strange and paranormal. I will be hosting some great guests with topics that affect us all, such as UFOs, ghosts, and everything paranormal. Let's learn together on Spaced Out Radio Sunday with myself, Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer at spacedoutradio.com.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
The party is always on at the Moose Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is where you want to be when visiting Canada's West Coast. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose cranks up the rock while serving some of the best rated food in the city. The menu starts at $6.95. Why party anywhere else in Vancouver when the Moose is right there? Get your horns up and rock with the Moose, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for creative ways to get your company out in the public? How about advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Our sales department is waiting to hear from you, and we can work around any budget. From commercial spots to banners to special promotions, there are many opportunities to get your name and product out to our SOR listeners. For a price guide and more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
Hello, everyone. This is Ryan Stacy from the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We're glad to team up with Spaced Out Radio to help investigate your experiences on the SOR Sightlines Report. Together, we'll investigate the strange sightings and occurrences you've had. We're looking for answers just like you. So fill out a Sightlines report on the Spaced Out Radio website and let's figure out what's going on together.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for choosing to spend your evening with us. And we want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. Remember, you can check out all of our archives for free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Ubiquitate. Ubiquitate is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. For the final time tonight, we introduce our guests from Writers of the Future. We have John and Emily Goodwin, who are putting together this contest, which any aspiring writer, whether it's novels, short stories, can submit. And we've been having a great time with you guys tonight. John, Emily, thank you so much for taking time for our audience tonight.
And we really appreciate being invited onto your show.
Yes, thank you.
It's been a lot of fun so far. A lot of fun. With the life that we are having right now and the weird and strange, everything seems to be revolving around UFOs, disclosure, the government, everything along those lines. You know, you guys deal a lot with ufology. Are you seeing a lot more UFO books come out these days, or people presenting them to you, Emily?
We do get quite a few UFO stories. In fact, in the latest anthology that we just published, the Writers of the Future Volume 36, I mean, there were several UFO stories I know that were finalists. And the first story in the book, called The Trade, that opens up with, there's some people out on the space station, and they get approached by, an alien race who comes in like a humanized body, and it's quite an interesting story. And that's like, it's the first one in the book, and so it just goes to show that we are getting a lot more of that right now. I mean, of course, earlier this year, the government put out some information. Obviously, you guys are tracking a lot more than I probably am about that. But everyone sort of seemed like, oh, well, we're so distracted by everything else. Oh, well. But all the writers are, they went straight in and started sending a bunch of stories in for UFOs and a lot of paranormal stuff.
And one that just came out recently by one of Doug Beeson is the current judge, and Ben Bova was a judge, Space Station Down, which is the whole thing about ISS. How it was, that's not UFOs, but it's space-related story. We're getting more and more of that type of stuff right now of UFOs, or it's not even going back there. We're just assuming that it's a fact, so it's just the interrelationship between us and other races, other life forms. And so it's pretty much constantly seen. And in this one here, the book she was talking about right now, there's even a light horror story about another race coming in and cause a whole catastrophe on our planet. And it's like, wow, it takes place about 20 years after it happens, and what life is like after that. So there's definitely a lot of stuff that's coming in right now. And I'm anticipating, because of the whole thing right now with the 2020 pandemic, there's going to be even a further, I haven't seen it yet because it's, they're going to be coming in right now, but there'll be more stories of either the fantastical or the science fiction of what's going to come as a result of this, because it's, there's various stories of how it started in China, and it was a mutation that was created from a secret lab that then got out, and it's the 2020s of the Andromeda strain of 1966 or whenever that was done. So I'm expecting to see a lot more of that type of stuff, and in actual fact, because this is what people are living right now.
All right, let's try and figure out, the best way to present a UFO book right now, because everybody is hot to trot on the whole disclosure movement, especially with the videos that we have seen from the Navy and everything along those lines. Is there a way to try and write that into a proper story? Because the majority of writers out there are not going to have access to the sources who could give them the information.
Well, one thing I did learn, and this is along your line of country too, is like Jim Marrs. He wrote his books, and his books were actually nonfiction, but he did some fiction stuff too. And a lot of the stories he told, he said, "Okay, this is in order to publish it, I need to call it fiction and not nonfiction." But he had his sources. He built up his sources. He had everybody who's listening right now will find that you're not that far away from someone who does know something, or someone who knows something, that you can get some good information. And it's an amazing number of sources that he built up over the years that he was able to get some of the most fantastical data. But he said, it's for sure this is what happened, and he gets his evidence on it. But it's taking the time to do the research, because even if someone who writes, a regular fiction story, to the degree if they really do the research, they're going to be able to get a good story. And Hubbard tells one story. He wrote this one story about the Coast Guard, and he wrote this story. Yeah, it's a piece of cake, and it was just the story didn't sell. It was rejected, and he said, I didn't do my research. So he actually went there. He talked to the people in the Coast Guard. He did his research. He found out what the officers were like versus the enlisted. And then he told a story that, it sold right away as soon as he redid it. So he went on a whole role about the importance of research. And so Jim Marrs talked about when he did his books, it took longer because of the depth that he went into. But it's the research that has to be done, and there's no scrimping on that. If you're going to tell this story, you just need to be willing to pursue any strings you can get to get information that you can then put together a story. And it might take a while to get that, but there's no getting around that. And that's something that even we were talking about in the first hour, there's just no substitute for putting in the work. You can think, I'm just writing a story, but it's not just writing a story. You've got to put the whole reality there, and if that reality requires a bunch of research, then you better do your research. Otherwise, it won't be convincing, and it won't sell, and it's just going to be a flop. So, first of all, any idea that a person should be discouraged from doing something like this because he doesn't have access, he just needs to go to work and start writing to people, write to other authors who write similar types of books. How do you find this information? And just somebody eventually will say something here, and you just check something else, and all of a sudden you start putting together and amassing quite a bit of data that you can then start putting together a story. And that's really how it goes. And some of these authors, he did this book, but I spent 2 years researching it, and then you just realize, wow, there's a lot to that. So anyway, that's a comment on that. If somebody wants to write one about, these jets that saw these which has been played over and over and over again, if somebody wants to do that, it's made public so they can actually do it.
And also, I mentioned earlier, we have that free online writing workshop, and you're talking about an approach to writing a paranormal story. Well, there's really an approach to writing any genre, but in that online writing workshop that I mentioned, it does go over that, and these are pros telling how to do it. Here you're asking me in publishing, but if you want to hear from like pros how to do that, there's essays and videos on that there at the writersofthefuture.com where like Orson Scott Card talks about how to come up with story ideas, and there are essays on it on how to come up with story ideas, and how do you come up with the ideas? How do you piece the story together? And when you're writing about it, how do you write the narration and the dialogue and so forth? So that's something that if somebody was attempting to write a new story, they could have a look at that. It might help out a bit as well.
And one other piece to that, because it's another essay that's in there, is story out of the hat. And because one thing someone mentioned in the chat room is like, tell me about L. Ron Hubbard, and that's just one thing is that people might not know. He was born in 1911, and he became, in the 30s and 40s, one of the most popular pulp fiction writers. And he wrote several essays at the time because he was the president of the New York chapter of the American Fiction Guild. And he wrote a lot. He went to great lengths to be able to help other aspiring writers. So he wrote articles and essays for writer magazines of the day. But he wrote all the different genres, and he then worked, say, the business of writing. And then he got into like, well, okay, how do you come up with story ideas? Is there such a thing as writer's block? And he discovers and he works that out and talks about that also in these essays. But he was he went into writing as a business, and he traveled a lot, and he built up his expertise as a writer. But he had accumulated a lot of different stories along the line. And he talks about Jack London, how he came up with story ideas, because he was, Jack London, he's amazing. I mean, he's personally one of my favorite writers. But he would say, like, he'd be broke, and he'd borrow $1 from somebody. He'd go to a bar in Embarcadero there in San Francisco, and he'd talk to some sailor that just came in on a ship and buying beers, and tell him, just tell me what happened. Just give me your stories. And he'd get his story ideas from that, and then he'd be able to go back and write another story. So it's life and life experiences, and Hubbard himself traveled all over the world at a time when people didn't travel. That was in the 1920s, 1930s. He was, by the time he was 20, he'd been to China 3 times, and so he was able to write a lot of Chinese mystery stories and adventure stories. So when he came up with creating the Writers of the Future competition, he had a lot of experience already helping other writers, as well as essays which are based on his own experience that have proven workable. And even if applied to a story here about paranormal activities, going to Mars, the moon, there's certain tools that work and work every time, just like Heinlein's rules, of storytelling. You do them, and if you do them, you're going to succeed. And that's something that we're so sincere in this on wanting to, if you got a story, if you feel like you've got a story to tell, but just don't know how to tell, or just kind of like you've been so discouraged, connect up with Writers of the Future. It has nothing to do with anything other than providing that helping hand to the aspiring writer and artist. And the whole intention of it, the last genre that Mr. Hubbard wrote in was science fiction and fantasy. And so when he created Battlefield Earth and then Writers of the Future competition, it was to carry forward that purpose where science fiction is the herald of possibility. And so in his book Battlefield Earth and a lot of other stories that have been written in science fiction, every astronaut that has spoken at a Writers of the Future event, every director of NASA that's spoken, we've only had one of those, but still we still had one director of NASA, they all got to start reading science fiction. That was their inspiration to want to do, the engineers we've got from JPL that have done most of the different parts of the robots that are right now on Mars, the rovers. We've had those engineers speak with, and they were all inspired by science fiction. And that's, I think, a big part of why he created that genre with this competition. So it is sincere trying to provide some tools. It's not anything other than that, so that people that if they have a story to tell and they don't know how to do it, here's something that you can use It's free for the offering. There's nothing that's requested in return. You don't even have to enter the contest, But if you do, it doesn't cost anything. And you'll find a lot of other like-minded writers, aspiring writers that you can meet up with and get to know in the forum. Or on the website, or on the Facebook page, the Twitter page, the Instagram page, that you can find out and meet them and take your next step to becoming a writer. Even if you just want to do it as a vocation, that's fine. You still have a story you want to tell, and this can help you to be able to do that.
I have a question coming in from Chris here in our chat room, who is asking, is it really easier to write scripts for TV and theater than a book?
No, I think they're two different things. I don't know that one's easier than the other. I think that they each have a different, process. So, yeah, I don't know that. I've never heard of that one being easier than the other. I know sometimes people cross over, but otherwise, I don't know that one's easier. I wouldn't say one's easier, they're just different.
The thing, when L. Ron Hubbard was in Hollywood back in the, I think it was the early or late 30s, he was there, and he had a novel that was serialized on the Secret of Treasure Island, and it was a 17-parter, I think it was, and he was here in Hollywood for a year, and then he went back to New York. His problem he had with it was that when he was in New York and he was a writer, he'd submit a story, and that was the story that was published. In Hollywood, when you write a screenplay, then you've got the nephews and the cousins and the brothers and sisters of the producer that have to go in, and they make their changes to the plot or the line or the this or the that. And so the story that you submit is the story that gets done. So that was one of the frustrations he had with Hollywood, so that, he was able to do it, but he didn't like the fact that what he submitted wasn't what made it in, and he was used to that with the stories that he wrote for all the books he wrote in New York. Because he wrote well over 200 different stories. He published well over 200. We have another 100 stories that we haven't published yet that he wrote, but he was very, very prolific.
We've only got about 6 minutes left with you guys tonight. Show that's flown on by.
Holy moly, that's the fastest 2.5 hours. Jeez.
I know. The one thing that excites me about everything that you guys are doing is you're wanting to give new writers an opportunity to make something, because you recognize that there is a lot of talent out there that may not be catching that break that they need in order to, to get their books published and their stories printed and out to the public. Why focus on that newer crowd rather than recycling already who's out there?
Well, you have a lot of people that have, their dream. Their dream is to write those books and get people have stories to be told. And, not everybody has connections. And, it's like, do you want to see the same actor in every movie all the time, or you want to see, variety of different people? So the reason why is because, a lot of people have great stories to tell. There's a lot of very creative people out there. And, the whole thing about this contest is that it gives them a voice. And that's what I like about it a lot.
How about for you, John?
Well, what I like about, I was actually reading all the different chats on that stuff while you were asked her that last question there.
But yeah, just why new authors? Why not all just the same people?
Oh, okay, that's an easy one. So the whole thing on new authors, and we just had one of my very dear friends, Mike Resnick. He passed away in January, and he was a judge, but he contributed a lot for many years, but we've got to keep on putting the future there, and that's why it's called Writers of the Future. And there's to say that you've a new voice, and one of the things that happens to a writer is that when you write something, it's kind of like that's what you write. Like Stephen King, he's written other stuff, but he doesn't write other stuff as Stephen King. Stephen King he's horror. And so when you've got Clear and Present Desert with Clear and Present Danger, we talked about at the beginning of the show. I mean, that's what Clancy wrote. Those were his stories. He was kind of like pegged with that type of stuff. So when you open the gates for the new voices to come in, they've got stories to tell and new ways to tell it. And seasons change. There's new way that people are perceiving what's happening right now. You've comparing it to the music industry. I'm not always crazy about the new stuff. I have the stuff that I grew up with that I really like, and that's really good. Sometimes I'll find a new song on, a new performer, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. I actually like that person. I like their music. And so I'll find something new, which I wouldn't, had there not been a future wave of music happening, that I would have discovered that and found out there's other aspects to music that I didn't know of before that I like, a new rhythm, a new beat. Same thing with writing. So being able to provide this with this competition opens it up to, like I said, so many what we see right now of the new subgenres of like steampunk in science fiction and fantasy got its start from people that won Rise of the Future half a dozen to 10 years ago. And so it does create the new future and the new wave of science fiction. And as science changes, science fiction is going to change, because what was science fiction 20 years ago is science fact now. So what's going to be the new, George Jetson has happened. So what comes next? That was my generation, but now we got the new thing that goes on, and that's why we need the new voices, the new perspectives that is looking at something that's existing, the current guard doesn't think of.
Corrins, our booking guy, brings up a good point here. Authors and very talented authors have the ability to really shape the future as well. I mean, you look at what George Orwell wrote in 1984, and then with The Animal Farm.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, these are two powerful books that were way ahead of their times, and some would even say are predicting what we're going through right now.
We just finished reading those again recently, and it is so right now.
Yeah. There's a few pull quotes, and I know someone just posted on social media the other day, 1984 was a fiction book, not an instruction manual.
That is very true. Very true. We only have about 1 minute here left with you guys tonight, and I want to say thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Been an absolute pleasure to have both of you on here. If you could do me a favor, John, and just tell everybody, especially the aspiring writers out there, where they can find more information about Writers of the Future, I'd really appreciate it.
Sure. So it's writersofthefuture.com. And on the left-hand side there, there's the forum, there's the podcast, there's the blog, and then there's the writing workshop, where a person can click on all of those things are free, and you can sign up for the forum, you can sign up for the workshop, or you can immediately just start listening to the podcasts or read. We've got probably 150, 200 blogs in there. So it's writersofthefuture.com, and then of course there's the buttons for entering the writing contest or entering the illustration contest. And again, those are both free as well.
All right. Thank you so much, John and Emily Goodwin, for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight. An absolute pleasure to have you on. I'm pretty positive we will end up doing this again in the future. And once again, Writers of the Future. So if you're a writer, go check it on out. You never know, it might be your big break. Coming up next, we join Vancouver. Shane at the Shift and I are going to talk some Bigfoot. Then we're going to get into the SOR Newswire and the thought of the day. A jam-packed Spaced Out Radio last half hour coming up.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, Spaced Out Radio fans! It's John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. Our goal is to make the life of veterans, first responders, and those with rare medical conditions 10% happier. We do this by donating one grant item, ranging from dance to therapy programs to prosthetic limbs, to those who need it most. To contribute to Spaced Out Radio's official charity, head over to chivecharities.org and become a donor today.
If you like it hot, real hot, then heat up your meals with Bumblefoot hot sauce.
Get your Bumblefoot hot sauce today. The sauce, Bumblicious, and the 4 million Scoville unit Bumble. We're going in hot, real hot, coming out even hotter.
Keep the milk nearby and tantalize your taste buds tonight.
Bumblefoot hot sauce, available now at kajans.com.
At spacedoutradio.com, we are keeping you up to date on all the news with the SOR Newswire. Captain Shirk leads the team that is bringing you the news of the day and exclusive stories on everything paranormal and supernatural. It's free to read, it's updated daily, and it's right there for you. The SOR Newswire is a one-stop shop for the news of the day. Check it out at spacedoutradio.com today.
Cold drinks, great food, and the best music in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is the place to be, open until 2 a.m. nightly. Everything on the menu starts at just $6.95. Who serves food that cheap anymore? At the Moose, you'll never know who you'll run into. Rock stars, actors, athletes. It's the place everyone wants to be. So join us at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
You wanted new SOR gear, and now you can have it. The SOR Vault is fully stocked with t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and everything in between, with great logos for you to choose from. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com, click on the SOR Vault, and go shopping. Pricing is quite affordable, and you can look good representing your favorite show. So go to our website and pick up your new SOR wear at the SOR Vault today.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at mightymoosebeard.com today.
Hello, Space Travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
Hi there, this is the paranormal lawyer Michael W. Hall. I'd like to invite you to listen in each Sunday night where we're going to open up your eyes to everything strange and paranormal. I will be hosting some great guests with topics that affect us all, such as UFOs, ghosts, and everything paranormal. Let's learn together on Spaced Out Radio Sunday with myself, Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you looking for great advertising value for your company? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. We have a multitude of places to get your name out there, including commercial ads during the show, special promotions, and banners on our website. Our audience is proven to support the companies that support our show. We can make your budget work for you. For more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for joining us. Reminder to all of you that if you missed most of this show or others, you can check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including Rockin' Out to Bumblefoot and Rockin' Out to Bumblefoot and Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Let's go over to Vancouver right now, hook up with Shane and the Shift. I think they're going to bring us in and talk a little Bigfoot.
I had no idea Ice Cube had a song that was called Sasquatch. Dave Scott, Spaced Out Radio. Are you there, my friend?
I am here, my friend. How are you?
I am absolutely quite wonderful today. It is our Good News Tuesday-ish that we bring you on the program, so might as well start with a little bit of good news, Dave Scott. You must have something that you can share.
I do have good news, because for all those outdoors people out there who decide, to get in that final few hikes of the year and those final few times where they're going to go camping out in the forest, maybe do a little fishing at a private lake or something along those lines, the good news is your chance of seeing Bigfoot or Sasquatch is actually going to increase. Why is that? Because talking to the people that I have been talking to recently, we are now in the migration time of year, where Sasquatch looks to prepare for the winter, and they start looking for food, foraging for the final berries of the year, and you never know what's going to come around that next tree and that next rock and that next corner while out in the wilderness.
All right, Dave Scott, I have a question for you that came in from a listener, and I think it's just an honest question, and I think it's worth asking.
Sure.
Bigfoot,
hit me up.
Sasquatch, Yeti. All the same dudes?
Yes, different species, though.
Okay. So, all dogs, one's a Great Dane, one's a Golden Retriever.
Exactly. All dogs, yeah. Yeti is more in the Asian area from Russia through China, Tibet, into that area around Mount Everest. The Sasquatch is the Canadian term, which was brought forward about 100 and some years ago by the Chehalis Indian band out by Harrison Lake. And they are the ones who are noted for that name. So if anybody tells you differently, they're lying. That's where the word Sasquatch came from. Bigfoot is more the American version of this. But, even in North America, we actually do have different types of creatures. So the creatures in the Pacific Northwest tend to be bigger, anywhere from 7 feet to 10, 11 feet tall. Whereas if you go down into the bayous of Louisiana, Texas, Alabama, Florida, in that swampy area, they say the creature is anywhere between 4.5 to 7 feet tall, except it is much more aggressive, much more angry, and much more really wants to hurt you. But then again, look at the environment it's in, where you're having to deal with alligators, crocodiles, vipers, and rattlesnakes, and I'd be pretty upset too. I would.
I love it. I was going to get all political on you there, but I decided not to, because it wasn't funny. But so here's the thing. When we got into this, you said migration. To me,
yes.
I heard that as kind of like a bear getting ready for hibernation. Is it similar that you're talking about, or you're just talking about the food changes?
Well, the idea behind it is this, is that the food sources right now, so if you think of the wild animals, what do they feed a lot on? They feed a lot on sheep and goats and deer and moose and elk and rabbits. Well, during the summertime, those animals move up more into the tops of the mountains around British Columbia and around North America and the world. So now that it's starting to get colder temperatures, where very soon the tips of the mountains are going to start seeing snow, these animals start coming down towards the valleys. And so what happens, and what is believed with the Sasquatch, is this is also combined with the fact that fish, like especially here on the West Coast, where the salmon are starting to migrate in towards the rivers and streams and lakes in order to spawn. Same thing on the East Coast in the rivers, streams, and lakes as well. So there's going to be a multitude of food options, a plethora of animals coming off the mountains. You have literally millions of fish that are getting ready to spawn. I mean, we all seen the videos from Alaska down through British Columbia where the bears sit in the raging rivers and catch the salmon as they're jumping through the rapids. That's what we expect to see. Now, a lot of the Sasquatch sightings around the eastern lower mainland of British Columbia actually happened during the hunting and fishing season in the wilderness because, you know, there was one famous story, I'm going to go back about 20 years, on the Chehalis River, where there's this canyon that has a very famous coho run. And a couple of fishermen were fishing in this canyon pool when all of a sudden rocks started splashing. And not just tiny rocks. Okay, we're talking boulders about 100 to 200 pounds being thrown off the cliff, which is about 100 feet above, right into this pool, literally almost hitting a couple of these fishermen and scared everybody away. Now, could this be folklore? Could this just be a fisherman's tale? Very well could be. However, that site still gets maintained by fishermen, and people there still claim that every now and again something weird happens.
So when we talk about all of these places, and I'm asking this question frankly because I just don't know, because when I did some research on Bigfoot and Sasquatch and all that today, I saw some pictures of bones. And they were sort of equating the believed size of Bigfoot and the Sasquatch, and to different history of primates, and trying to make connections between maybe the history of the biology of the beasts. So if all of these things are happening and they're all out there like this, why are we doing not see the bones the same way? Like I would imagine, for example, Mount St. Helens, stuff like that. Would there not be any beasts that, didn't survive or make it with the ash in the air back in the 80s, and then maybe they would find some bones lying around?
Well, that's an interesting story as it is, because even though there is zero proof, okay, there is eyewitness testimony and legend around Mount St. Helens on May 18th, 1980, that actually there were Chinook helicopters from Fort Lewis that were flying on in and allegedly carrying these Sasquatch bodies out. Yes. Do I believe it? I don't know. Is it plausible? Could be. But there are these stories that they were out collecting so that people wouldn't find them. Why? The easy answer to that is, well, maybe the government wants to try and make them into some supernatural type weapon, like they do with everything, because, Terminator is almost ready, and Terminator 2 is now pretty much a prophecy, the way we're going with everything. But otherwise, a lot of people also believe that this creature is very supernatural, almost having the ability to cross through portals or extra dimensions. A lot of First Nations across North America believe there is something very special about this, and that's the reason why we haven't found a body of this creature. Now, there are those who believe we have, and that they are stored in the Smithsonian. There's a number of excuses why we haven't found the body or why it's there. But what we do know is that there are footprints and tracks and all sorts of investigative phenomena and evidence that is popping up where you wouldn't see people around. And, one of the best, if you're interested in this story, Okay, and you know people who are in the logging community, many people who are foresters or do a lot of work in the forest, they will see some very, very strange things they cannot understand. I was talking to one young man here just a couple of days ago. He used to be a logger. He's now a car mechanic. And he was telling me that when he was working out in the deep woods of British Columbia doing logging, he was running a skidder. And all of a sudden, it's about 5 a.m. The sun is rising in the east. He's staring off into that direction, and he's watching these small trees be pushed over one by one on the horizon. He said about 7 trees fell, and he goes, I know for a fact there was no human there. I know for a fact there was nobody in that area but us logging, so there was no reason to bring those trees down because they were immature in the first place. And then he said that there was no earthquakes. Nothing would have made that happen. He went and told his boss. His boss says, don't worry about it. Just do your job and what you're supposed to do. And that's what a lot of logging crews are told.
So that's an interesting perspective, Dave, because I've never thought of it that way before. I mean, we've talked about black holes. We talked about black holes making black hole babies, and then now there's bigger black holes and space-time stuff and all of that. And I write in my writing about time quite a bit. One of my things about language and understanding life is once you understand time and the way that we look at time, that we understand a lot more about life, about ourselves. And so you got me there for a second because you said things like portals. Okay. Now, I have no evidence that any sort of portal would exist, but in the spirit of thinking about things differently, because that's where you have to think about things. I've always thought, okay, there's a beast. It's like a bear, but it's, Harry and the Hendersons walking around through the woods, and it's just a beast that we haven't found yet. And the way that I've said to myself, well, do I know anything about it? Not really, but they still find things in the sea all the time. Who's to say they wouldn't find something walking through the woods? But when you take the perspective of, sort of portals, timelines, supernatural conversation, well, the whole perspective changes if you just take it out of simple biology, doesn't it?
Well, sure, but there are a bunch of scientists who are looking at this, okay? I think of Dr. Jeff Meldrum from the University of Montana, or Idaho, one of those two. I always get them confused, where he actually believes that he has been able to follow patterns, including young Sasquatch that are now older Sasquatch, and he's been able to do that by casting footprints and seeing the dermal ridges and the lines, like much like your hands, you have a bunch of lines in your hand. Well, feet have the same patterns that cannot be replicated. And he has been able to watch them actually grow. He believes it's a family type of hominid species. All right. The late Dr. John Bindernagel, who passed away just a couple of years ago, spent over 70 years researching this creature, became a biologist, all because of the Sasquatch. He spent years trying to get the scientific community on board. David Paulides, who runs the very famous Missing 411 series. So if you go to canammissing.org, you'll be able to check out his website. He has worked long and hard on trying to think and figure out that a lot of these people who go missing in the forest are actually taken by Sasquatch, potentially, or aliens, one of the two. All right, but there is a lot of these stories that are going on by some very reputable people with high degrees, high education, and they are trying to figure out what is going on. The reason why the majority of the scientific community has not jumped on board with this, well, that's maybe because of ignorance, maybe the chance of losing grants, which has happened before. All right. The scientific community, the one thing that I have learned through this entire process, whether it's UFOs, ghosts, aliens, is that it is very political. And there are not a lot of scientific people who want to put their own reputations on the line to look for, things that aren't supposed to exist rather than concentrating on things that do. Much like the one study in the U.S. a couple of years ago where a university was paid over $300,000 to test how a cougar would react by walking on a treadmill. But we can't go look for Sasquatch because that's not real or right.
Why would a Sasquatch take a person, though? Is there any indication of how that is? Is this something we should be worried about?
No, the theory behind that is, and I'm using this from a story from the Chehalis First Nation around almost 100 years ago now, where a young lady was taken, and she was then found a few months later up in a cave in one of the mountains. And the theory behind that, in talking to many First Nations, is that they believe there may not be as many female Sasquatch as there are male Sasquatch. So with that being said, they look to take women so that way they could potentially procreate.
Wow. That does not bode well.
No, you don't want that. You don't want that.
No.
No, and that's why on a serious note, that's why a lot of First Nations, even up here, when I've talked to my friends at the Canham Lake Band, where I am, here in the Caribou region of British Columbia, all right, they have told me that they even tell their young ladies, do not go out alone at night because you never know. You'd never know if Sasquatch is going to take you.
The bear spray would come in handy.
Oh, maybe. But yes, you know what? The key is just keep looking. You never know. It doesn't matter whether you're, for the people where you are near Vancouver, if you go over to the North Shore Mountains or over to Golden Ears or out into the Fraser Valley of Chilliwack or Hope, or on the north side of the Fraser River, there is plenty of opportunity. You just have to know where to look, and it could be anywhere. Check a deer trail if you want to see something. Check a deer trail. They're not going to be walking down the road looking to pick up a hitchhike, like a hitchhiker. They're not going to be like that. What you have to do is just put yourself in the situation, and you never know what you're going to be able to find. Now, that being said, go into the forest safe. Know what animals are around there. Carry bear spray, all right? Be smart about things because you can get hurt in the wilderness very easily, But the key is, doesn't matter where you are in North America, Canada especially, these creatures are out there. People are out there looking for them. There's enough evidence out there through footprints, foot castings, hand castings, other types of evidence that people believe they found, from fecal matter all the way to hair samples. And all you have to do is look around and see where they're being found. And you never know. You go out in the wilderness, you may just get lucky.
Dave Scott, spacedoutradio.com for his show. Thanks for including us in it. Love the conversation. As always, Dave, I look forward to chatting again next week.
All right, my friend. We will chat with you next week. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio as well. Thank you, guys.
Spaced Out Radio. Thanks, Dave.
All right, there we go. Guess what it's time for? Shirky Poo's News. Let's get right to it tonight because sad story coming out of one of the topics we have covered over time in this show. The legendary Forrest Fenn has passed away. He was an explorer, a businessman, a warrior, a writer, a man who came to see art as something more than mere whisks of paint. But it was his challenge to the world, hiding a chest full of coins and other antiquities somewhere in the Rocky Mountains, that finally set Forrest Fenn apart. Fenn, the Santa Fe artifacts dealer and military veteran who created a treasure hunt that mesmerized the world, had passed away this past Monday at his Santa Fe home. He was 90 years of age, passing away of natural causes. Fenn served as a fighter pilot in the United States Air Force, earning a number of military citations and awards. He ran several art galleries, wrote numerous books, and collected artifacts from New Mexico and around the globe. But he will always be known for the pursuit of his treasure that he inspired in hundreds of thousands of thrill seekers in the last decade of his life. He launched the hunt in 2020 in his memoir, The Thrill of the Chase. Earlier this year, he announced the chase was over. the chest had been found. Longtime treasure hunter Cynthia Meacham from Albuquerque says that Fenn gave her and other hunters inspiration. But he has given us much more than that, she wrote, the never-ending desire to continue to explore new places, follow our dreams, and never stop yearning to discover the new adventure ahead. Forrest Fenn, passing away at the age of 90. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages, then read your responses on the air because we love the audience participation around here. Today's Thought of the Dave is as follows. Oh, let's get to it, shall we? What do you look forward to in this final third of 2020? Graham, spring, summer, and my vegetable garden with spring-planted sunflowers, red and yellow type 6-footers. My sunflower is about a foot tall, and I've got 3 stalks on it, even after the dirty, filthy deer ate it. But that's okay. It survived. Filth. Mrs. Filth does a lot of baking when it gets cold, so I'm okay with that. Banana bread is in my future. Oh, I'm so jealous over that. Homemade banana bread is fantastic. Jules, life and love, hopefully. Post-disclosure, more UFOs transparency. John, Christmas Day lunch. Spookles the cat, it's pumpkin season. Yes, it's pumpkin season. Barther. No, that's not Barther. I'm sorry. That's Chip. Half off sale at Burlington Coat Factory for new scarves. Very nice. Very nice. You can always use a good scarf in the wintertime. Let's go over here. Jeff, the end of it, and people stop complaining about everything. Kelly, Halloween, my wife's birthday, Thanksgiving, Christmas, breakfast for dinner becoming a staple for North America. Never. Sparkles, the end of this pandemic. Reverend Keith, the great awakening of the great Cthulhu. Davy, my boy Eddie's 6th birthday in a few days' time. Oh, then mine and my daughter's birthdays in October. That's always nice. And one more. Who will we choose? Tim, you get the final one. More cowbell. Thank you to Captain Shirk for the news. Everybody in the Thought of the Dave on Twitter and Facebook. We'll do it all again tomorrow. And to John and Emily Goodwin for being our guests tonight. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thaw rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, in your cars, at work, wherever you may be. Thank you to everybody participating in our chat rooms tonight and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train is docked for the night, but tomorrow, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we got room for them too. Good night.